Two friends meet up to drink some beers and talk about past times. Not yesterday, but long ago, it's scandals, wars and crimes. From Stalin's reign to Prohibition, Tudors, Pompey, Bush and NASA's mission, Edison's spoke, Genghis Khan's rise to victory. Forget your old teacher, it's time for Pint-Sized history.
Hello there, and welcome back for our first ever two-parter of the story of Alexander the Great. I'm glad you could join us again for the second part as we dive into this unbelievable tale so far. I'm gripped.
And I'm Joe. And I'm Joe. We're forgetting that part, are we?
I messaged Joe recently. I said, I keep forgetting this. I need to, and there was like, I think a moment in the Prohibition episode where I tried to sign off the entire season without coming to Joe. I apologise.
That's right.
This is Joe.
That's right. That's
you know
me.
who Joe is.
Yeah.
We all know who Joe is.
Do we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. And that's
Zack.
right. Okay, that's Zack. Yes, we're in part 2 now, and we're going to continue the story right where we left off with Alexander the Great.
Should we quickly recap what we've been through?
Yeah, well, that's what I will. Don't worry, I am going to recap. The year at this point is 333 BC. 23-year-old Alexander is 1 year into his campaign into the Persian Empire. He is at the foot of the Nur Mountains, which is basically this mountain range at the corner bit between Turkey and Syria. So he's literally the end of the Mediterranean, basically. And he's attempting to cross through the mountains into modern-day Syria on the next step to his journey into the Persian heartland. But there is extremely troubling news. It's Alexander, your grace.
Back again, here I am.
Hi there.
A week later, in the same outfit, might I say.
Well, yeah, it's like we filmed these back-to-back.
No.
This is Alexander, sir.
Amateur.
It's Alexander, sir.
Yes, my friend.
I prefer uncle. I am Parmenion.
Yes, your uncle.
Thank you. What's that? Where are you going? Are you going Dutch?
All my accents are now Dutch.
Dutch. It's outrageous. Our scouts report that the royal Persian army are right behind us. Cutting us off from Turkey, we are trapped between the sea, the Nur Mountains, and King Darius III himself.
Oh, King Darius, the King of Kings, King Darius.
The King of Kings. The
I
King.
Like it's a nice name, King Darius.
It is cool. Yeah, the third as well. The King of the Persian Empire. And you're right, known as the King of Kings.
What?
I go a bit dramatic.
The King
of Kings.
Like a Matthew McConaughey bit there.
According...
All right.
Okay. As Alexander, please. We're about to fight. You need to get your head in the game.
You're drunk a lot.
I know you're 23 at this point, but I'd like it if you really focused on what we're about to do.
I
here.
apologise profusely.
Thank you. Please. We're not going to win this.
Proceed. Armenian.
According to reports, according from our scouts, the army that we're facing is up to 100,000 men. Now, need I remind you, I'm sure you know the logistics of your own army, but in general, the Greek army, and this does vary from time to time, but it has roughly about 40,000 men. So if he has 100,000, as these reports suggest,
2.5 times.
That's 2.5 times, which is worrying. No.
You saw what we did to them, those cowards, at the Battle of
Grappius?
Yeah, Granicus.
Granicus, thank you.
Yeah, you saw what we did to them, and we'll do it again, but worse.
There's
more of them to fall on my spear.
Okay, well, let's talk tactics then. We've got them in front of us. Once again, may I say, there's a river between them. This time,
always a river.
There's a much smaller river this time. It's called the Pinaris River, and they are lined up against each other. This is not a wide battlefield because the mountains are there and the sea is there. So for these huge armies, there is not that much space to maneuver. What would you like to do? It's Alexander the Great.
I take my cavalry round the back of the mountains. I route round.
Around the back of the mountains, they come around. That would take days.
I don't do that then, because that's just silly. Who would do that if it would take days?
Yes,
not me.
That's crazy, it's Alexander the Great.
I would just let the phalanx go. Just let them cook.
So you'd send the phalanx forward.
Yeah, straightforward. On its own.
On its own.
Support.
No cover.
No support, no cover.
See, that's why...
I have such undying faith in this idea of phalanx. And I know the Persians are going to shit themselves when they see this. So let's go. Let's go, phalanx boys. Pick up your spears. We're leaving. 0800, you're out. You're going.
I'm afraid that is why you're not the greatest general possibly
I'm so
in
close.
history.
I was so close.
But thank you for responding. Thank you for your ideas. I will tell you that you were incorrect, obviously, because why would you do that? It's crazy.
You're really rubbing it in now.
What I will say is the problem for Darius III is that because of the landscape, he's actually not giving himself much of an advantage. He has a huge force, way bigger than Alexander's, and yet because of the smaller battlefield, he can't use it.
No.
Like it's kind of blocked off. It's not a passage, but it's like, he can't use all 100,000 really when it's this small, this arena.
Very Thermopylae vibes.
Yeah, kind of. The numerical advantage is not there like it should be. So he sets his army up similarly to how Alexander does, with knights on either side, cavalry with infantry in the middle. Himself is in a royal chariot. Darius III is in a royal chariot in between his rear guard and his front line. Darius actually has behind him the Immortals, which is his...
Oh, they're real.
They are the prime fighting force.
Yeah.
His best troops are at the back with him, ready to be used. Alexander is on the right flank, as always, with his troops. Parmenion is on the left with the other troops, and we've obviously got the phalanx in the middle. So, Darius III waits on the bank, waiting for Alexander to make the move. And I'll tell you right now, he doesn't have to wait long. Alexander pretty much effing immediately gets ready to strike.
My guy.
However, he notices that on the left-hand side, his cavalry with Parmenion is very outnumbered. So he sends some of his own very quick, literally intuition. He just sees that it's like, okay, this is bad. So he sends them over quickly and makes sure that they're...
Like Rain Man, 183 cavalry.
Yeah, he's like 100, 200, 300. He's like, no, those numbers don't work. No. At this moment, Alexander gives a rousing speech. Apparently, he goes up to some of his units specifically, literally, like to some of the men, and calls their names out specifically through this speech. He tells them how we are going to conquer the world. And
What, like a random hoplite?
Yeah, just like the random soldier that he knows the name of, or maybe a random like sergeant that he knows the name of.
Nico.
And he goes up to them. Yeah, and he goes, Nico,
yeah.
I know what you did last battle. You're gonna kill
3
20.
Persians.
You're gonna kill 20 this battle. And
Yeah.
blah, 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 all this stuff, and he hypes them up, and then he charges head on. Him first, before anyone else. He is the first one to go forward, and his companion cavalry follow close behind. With this right flank, he produces a shock, and they're surprised and they're taken aback. However, the phalanx that moves forward around the same time is not so fortunate.
No.
They are being...
Not my boys!
The phalanx...
My boys!
They are struggling against the larger numbers that are in the middle, and they are actually getting
He's
pushed...
back!
They are
King Darius is back!
Darius, with his huge army, is pushing them back. Unexpectedly,
Really?
he's pushing... The phalanx, probably for the first time, or one of the first times, is actually being held back, and not only that, but being pushed back. So, Alexander, in the heat of this cavalry battle he's fighting in, notices the problem, turns around, regroups, and sends some of his companion cavalry into the side of the Persian flank. The Persian middle. So, these phalanx troops are fighting in the middle alongside this Persian infantry unit, and suddenly a wave of Greek cavalry...
Like Jon Snow in
exactly.
in that Battle of the Bastards.
Battle of the
episode.
Bastards comes right in and takes out the side. They are panicked. They're like, what do we do? This is horrible. Shit, we're being attacked from the side. This is chaos. And suddenly, they don't know... Are they winning this battle? Are they losing? Has everyone left? Where is everyone? We've got this 100,000 army, and yet we've just been flanked?
Yeah. If your 2 flanks of horses are engaging each other, and you pull part of that horse flank out, then you've got like an incredible mobility advantage over these like very static infantry units.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you imagine it on a battlefield, Alexander has sent his cavalry forward as soon as possible. He has engaged the cavalry on the other side, and they are now fighting in a skirmish. When the phalanx then moves up, they are behind them. So even when they engage, Darius has not realised that he's literally left this door wide open for his main infantry unit to just be attacked from the side. All they need to do is just turn around and send some units, and that's exactly what Alexander does because he's quick thinking and he's on his feet. So the Persian guard are completely shocked. They do not know what to do, and so they're in chaos. They don't understand what's happening, and at this moment is when Alexander decides to take his cavalry and charge straight on into the middle where Darius is himself.
Really? Oh, come on.
So...
Oh, this is so Hollywood.
Darius is...
Why is there no good film on Alexander the Great?
There is a Hollywood movie about Alexander called Alexander. Do you know who the lead is?
Give me a clue.
Irish.
Colin Farrell?
It is.
No way! Really?
Colin Farrell in like 2004 or something.
Really?
Yeah, had like Angelina Jolie.
Was it too
Val
big budget?
Kilmer and some other actors.
Oh, as in
well.
Iceman?
Yeah.
Really?
I think he probably plays Darius or someone. I'm not sure who he plays. So Alexander charges head on with his companion cavalry into King Darius III and his immortal troops, the legendary troops of the Persian army. The biggest empire in the history of the world, the Persian army. This is their best troops, and he charges head on into them with Darius III on his royal chariot ready to go.
Troops that have conquered everywhere from India to Egypt.
Exactly. And you know what happens when he charges them head on?
They shatter a
They
rout.
are freaked the fuck out because they're like, who is this boy king who's just done this most ridiculous play? And so they flee. And atop
The immortals flee. Not very immortal, are they?
Who flees first? The king. And with that, the troops witnessing this historic moment of their king, the emperor, as it were, of the Persian Empire, flees the battlefield, and they all flee with themselves. Now, if you look behind you, Zach, or you look with me, you'll have noticed our picture for today. And I'll tell you, if you're watching the visual podcast, that is, and you'll notice this is a mosaic. This is called the Alexander mosaic. It was believed to have been created in Pompeii around 110 BC. So this mosaic
Prior
is actually...
to the volcano.
Well, yeah, I imagine. And so this was around 2,100 years ago that this was created. You can find this. It's in Naples in Italy. It's I think at the archaeological, National Archaeological Museum.
Have you seen it yourself?
I've never been to Naples.
Really?
But it's in the National Archaeological Museum in Naples. So if you want to go see it, you can see it yourself. But if you're watching the visual podcast, then you'll see this is a portrayal of that exact moment where King Darius III decides to run away. So if you look here, is Alexander the Great on his horse charging, and here in his chariot, in his royal chariot, is Darius, King Darius III, who sees the Alexander and decides to run away with his troops. And it's obviously a very historic moment. And this is history that was created and it's a huge mosaic piece. I think the length of this mosaic, which is a floor mosaic as well, it's on the floor.
Oh, really?
Is as long as a phalanx spear, or just almost as long as a phalanx spear.
That's cool, isn't it?
So yeah, so it's that's
well done.
Well done to Pompeii. Well, it's in Naples, but it was created in Pompeii.
Neapolitans?
Neapolitans, yeah. But yeah, it was someone in Pompeii that created it many, many years ago, and that's it's literally just depicting this epic moment, arguably the turning point of this. Well, not the turning point, but the big moment of this conflict.
It's at the beginning of the end of the Persian Empire.
Yeah, well, from now it's like they're on the back foot, right?
They've lost their massive army.
They've not exactly lost all of it, but the problem is that like they're on the back foot. They are losing ground. Alexander is gaining not only morale but hardened troops that are ready to fight again.
The immortals are dying in this situation.
No, the immortals are running away. That's the immortals right there. They're running. Are
they on
away.
horseback?
No, they're infantry. I mean, I'm sure some of them might die, but this is 100,000 strong. This army. So if the king runs away and his immortals run away, there's still a lot of units still to deal with. It's not like all of them run away. You know, it's a steady progress. So they have met plenty of people that they need to cut down, and they did. Apparently, it was a massacre by the end. It turned into a complete massacre. But many of the immortals, the king, a lot of them still were able to run away. Some people that were captured, though, King Darius III's wife, mother...
His wife and mum were there.
Right, wife, mother, and two daughters were all captured at the battle.
Really?
Which, according to history,
That's
according to reports, Alexander treated them quite respectfully. Apparently, it wasn't, not much happened. Darius fled east, and Alexander then turned down the coast towards Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. Now, we know him as Alexander the Great, but in Persia they had a different name for him: Alexander the Accursed.
Ah.
He captured these cities, these Persian cities, although obviously they're in Syria and Lebanon or whatever, in fierce conflict. So Tyre, and Gaza, the city of Gaza, were taken. It took months of heavy sieging before they were taken. So all this stuff is
currently going through months of heavy sieging.
I know. It's funny. It's crazy how long ago this period was.
Very cyclical nature of history, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's unbelievable.
War in Eastern Europe, war in Middle East. It's as if 2,200 years haven't gone by, or however long it is.
So they arrive in Egypt in 332 BC. Unlike the other places that they've gone to, in Egypt, he's treated as a liberator. You know, they consider him this god, as it were, that's suddenly just taken over Egypt, and they announce him as the pharaoh.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know how true this is, but I have a Turkish barber, and they said that there's Egyptians and the rest of like the Arab world don't necessarily get along that well, and there's like distinctions and differences between the way that Turks historically view themselves, and Arab nations like Syria, Israel, Lebanon. Well, I say Arab nation for Israel, but you get what I'm saying. They will view themselves quite separately to the way that Egypt and Turkey view themselves distinctly different from the rest of them, which might be like a certain reason for the way that I don't know whether that has any historical validity or if it goes back thousands of years, but might be the reason why Egypt received them, because they don't like being ruled by an Arabic country.
I don't know. it's tough to, because we're not experts. We always say when we're enthusiasts on history. We don't know this stuff. Casuals, a podcast for casuals. So I don't know, and I don't really want to say too much because I'm scared to say something that's completely wrong. But if I had to guess, Egypt is a country that's had a incredibly detailed and historic culture, and so I imagine that
it's a world within itself. Egypt,
unlike maybe other Muslim countries that base a lot of their culture on the Muslim world, Egypt has its, they didn't use Islam before Islam was a thing. They've had their own slice of history that kind of means that were always going to be at conflict in a way. It kind of makes sense, if anything, that they weren't going to be the same in that sense. But I don't know. Maybe they were. Maybe you're wrong. I don't know if that was how it was. I'm not an expert at all about Egyptian history. Egyptian history is another one I'd love to do.
We'll do the
pyramids.
It's coming. Absolutely,
that'd be a cool one. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, or at least Cleopatra, which is after Alexander.
Exactly, and it suits the Romans as well. Julius Caesar. Anyway. So the final thing I'll say in Egypt is that he founded the great city of Alexandria in Egypt.
Oh really?
That's where the city of Alexandria was. And he created a bunch of cities, but that was the jewel. That was the crown jewel of his new cities. That's
it's been a big jewel in world history for thousands of years, obviously. Since then.
The Library of Alexandria.
Yeah, that's what it is,
Alexandria. Anyway,
which suits Alexander as a person, right? Having Aristotle as a tutor and this big inspiration to make the biggest library in the world after him. Yeah.
And then the Greek tragedy for it to be burnt down.
Who burnt it down?
I don't know. Why are you asking me these questions? I'm not a historian.
You might know.
Anyway, after that, Alexander now turns back east towards the capital of the Persian Empire, which is
Tehran.
Babylon. The ancient city of Babylon.
What is it called now?
Called Babylon. It's no longer a city.
Where is it?
It's a ruin. It's in Iraq. Yeah.
Is it? Oh, okay.
You'd imagine after all these battles, all this prophecy, the Aristotle tutorage, all of it, and all the wins. Tutelage, and the fact that he's made it to this point, beaten the odds. I mean, remember, his Macedonia before his dad was, this back haven of society in Greece. It's like, he probably thinks he is a god or a deity that has finally made his moment. For him, why would you not go for the whole thing at this point? You are destined for it. That was his mindset.
You've had a bite of the cherry.
Exactly.
Now enjoy the whole thing.
Exactly.
Don't choke on the pip, Alexander. Don't choke on the pip.
Wow, how profound. This is Darius's last chance to stop the usurper Macedonian.
I'm going to go ahead and say he does not stop them.
Well, let's find out, shall we? The Battle of Gaugamela.
Where is that now?
In Iraq.
Okay.
Fought on the 1st of October, 331 BC, can only be described as something truly epic.
Really?
Darius III this time opted for an open battleground because he'd learned from his mistakes. He'd realised that by closing in Alexander like that, he'd actually just allowed for, his units to be outnumbered themselves, even though they have the numerical advantage. So now he is making sure that it's as plain as possible. He literally picks out the perfect battlefield to take him on.
Surely also he is not going to let Alexander make the first move and attack forward in advance.
It's good. That's
we know it's his strong suit.
That's a good point. Both times he's made the first move, so how will he respond this time? Just before we start this battle, may I just say that and this is true for the first one, but this is especially true for the second battle between the two of them, he has taken troops from every corner of his realm. So apparently he has in his disposal Babylonian spears, Syrian infantry, Armenian cavalry, Indian camels, over 200 scythed chariots, including his own royal chariot, and 15 war elephants. Now, 15? That's right. 15.
It's not enough, really, is it?
Well, you say that,
you
but
only need 1,500.
That is 15 of the most expensive units in Age of Empires 2. that is the Persian war elephant. That is the most expensive unit, and he's got 15 of those fuckers in his
600
battle.
gold, isn't it?
It's something, I don't know.
Insane amount.
It's a lot.
Yeah, too much.
The Persian army is between roughly 50,000 to 250,000, so it's hard to tell exactly. Well, that's a big gap, isn't it?
Probably somewhere in the middle, right?
You'd imagine.
It is, yeah.
Well, Alexander's army is 47,000. So I think the best estimate is that he beats him at least 2-1, maybe a little bit more. Yeah. That's the kind of presumption. Alexander deployed his usual formation once more. So he's got the right with himself, he's got the left with Parmenion, and he's got the phalanx in the middle. So he's doing that same thing, that tried and true tactic.
Which Darius has seen now.
Darius has seen now. Well, seen once. He wasn't there for the first battle.
No.
Alexander has his companion cavalry on the flank on the right, and I've mentioned all those different. His army's so big, Darius III, that they're spread out in the most. They've got camels, cavalry, archers. They're spread out. They're in their spot. They're ready.
But not an organised fighting unit, which works against them, right?
You say that, but
how can you have such a separate force and expect it to come together to perform unique tasks together? You have people that don't know the same language on either side, and you expect them to form a line, form a center, don't rout, quickly maneuver around when you see you're getting overwhelmed on the left.
Yeah.
How do you communicate that to people who do not understand, one, what you're saying, and two, just being totally ideologically different to you, right?
Yeah, no, I think that is totally fair. I have defended the Persians so far in the sense that they are obviously well organised, because they wouldn't be able to do this if they weren't. But I do agree that when you have units from all over the kingdom like that, sure, they might all have their own style, but at the end of the day, it will be a logistical difficulty to be able to keep them all ready to do the right thing at the right time. And the advantage is certainly with Alexander in terms of not only how well prepared and how they're veterans now. They've been fighting so much, they know what they're doing, but they trust each other as well. And like I'm about to tell you, some of the tactics that they use are some of the most advanced or innovative of all the battles they've done so far. Alexander really goes up another level with this, and it is just really interesting to see the difference. It's like men versus boys, honestly, at times. And considering that Alexander's the boy and Darius is the man in this context, is outstanding, really, how this comes about. But you're right. I think that there is certainly an argument that was Darius ever really going to be able to do this? If Alexander wasn't the great but a good leader, could Darius still beat it? Because it feels like this is a mess. Those numerical advantages, you'd think he would, but it's just hard to tell because Alexander's so good. You can't really judge how anyone else is.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell how well
My
done
personal
they are.
thought is no.
But we'll see.
We know the Greeks are unbelievably well trained.
They are.
And having an empire like the Persian Empire, which is so vastly and culturally and just just even as the language itself so different, it's so hard. Empires rarely work.
Yeah.
They always come crumbling down.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
And you just know that it takes the slightest little change or difference to make that happen. I think as someone who's a critique of empires and big places, it makes sense that it doesn't work like that. Well, I say that. Yeah. I want big Earth.
Big Earth, one big empire Earth.
One empire Earth.
Yeah, maybe. No, I think I'm with you there on that. So, shall we start the battle?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So, we know how they're set up, and we know how things are going to go. Alexander is going to lead his companion cavalry, along with the big selection of his cavalry and his units on that right flank. He's going to lead them forward, but forward in a really wide right flank. So he's flanking from a really far distance.
Will they see him?
Yeah, they can see it. It's extremely plain battlefield. That's why he's picked it. So we can see what they're doing.
Just a large flat piece of land.
Yes,
by the way.
Yeah, literally as flat as it comes, basically. And the Persians are confused because they're thinking considering the numerical advantage, Alexander can't really be expected to encircle the army. Is he really thinking that's going to work? So they're confused. They don't really get it. So Darius decides to copy it and meet them with his own units, just basically stop them from flanking completely round, sending cavalry of his own. What Darius doesn't realise is that this is actually just a complete trap.
Yeah.
This is why he's doing it.
Alexander knows that Darius is going to copy him.
Exactly. He's already seen him copy him in the battle before he copied him. So Alexander just wanted Darius to take those troops out from the centre right and expose more of his flank.
The Conservatives.
Exactly. Weaken the centre. Yeah, the Conservatives. and weaken the centre. Alexander stops his own royal squadron and orders the rest of the companion cavalry to charge head on and engage that cavalry that's coming to meet them. So this cavalry that's expecting, basically, I'm showing this visually, so if you're listening to the audio, it might be difficult to understand completely, but basically, both cavalry units are going at such a wide flank that it should take them a while to meet. But the second that Alexander sees that cavalry is coming to meet them at a certain point, he tells the rest of his own cavalry, except for his royal squadron, to just take them head on, straight away. So the second they're a tiny bit out of formation, suddenly he's got these cavalry flying at them, and Darius suddenly has, on his left flank, all this cavalry that are just hitting him as super hard.
So as they're coming around, he splits into two forces, basically, because they're taking a wide arc, he basically just intercepts.
Instead of doing the
one.
wide arc, just takes them head on, uses the shock value of going as soon as possible with cavalry, and in the process, a huge cavalry battle happens, and this happens for a little while, where it's literally just horses fighting each other, like men on horses, and it's a big battle, right? Darius believes this is his moment to triumph. So what he does is he sends his 200 scythed chariots into the phalanx. So he tells all 200
Into the phalanx
to go straight into the phalanx.
Head on.
Idiot.
Oh,
he thinks right, well, they can't be protected from the sides. Sure, some chariots will die, but the ones maybe at the back will scythe, completely cut off the phalanx. Once they're disorganized, we can take him, right? He thinks this is his moment of triumph. So he sends them.
My man underestimates the phalanx.
So he sends them straight on. And as he's doing it, and as they're getting closer, the legendary javelin throwers on the sides start chucking their javelins, disrupting the horses. And when the horses finally arrive, the phalanx units, under a call from whoever's leading them at that moment, move to the side. They move to the side in a similar fashion to, if you know about the Battle of Waterloo, how the horses charge and the Duke of Wellington moves his forces into like box formations. It's similar, which is another thing we'll talk about in the future. But it's literally just because chariots can't move. Chariots can't like turn quickly. They've got a massive, super wide radius of so. If the phalanx just quickly shuffle to one side or the other, literally the chariots just come straight through and don't do anything. And once they go through the phalanx, go through the other side, now they've got the back line of the phalanx behind them, and they've got the hoplites between them. So suddenly these chariots are now in between the hoplites and the phalanx, and they're now, they're engaging in their own battle, trapped as it were. The chariots have now been completely neutralized. To be honest, they've been completely outplayed. And it's at this moment that Alexander screams, advance to his phalanx units along with his royal cavalry, charged into the heart of the Persian army, now far more weakened because they've lost a bunch on their left and they've also lost the chariots in the middle.
And basically all their mounted units too.
Yeah,
they've lost all the chariots. They've lost basically the bulk of their cavalry forces. They still got some cavalry.
Reserves, they've got cavalry on the similar, because remember they're mirroring their army. So on the left, like how Alexander's got cavalry, they've got cavalry.
But they're completely outflanked.
They are, but that's an interesting point that we'll get to in a moment. On the other side, the cavalry that Parmenion is controlling is actually struggling a little bit, and we'll get to that in a moment. But firstly, the phalanx moves forward with the royal squadron and jump into the heart of the Persian army. The speed, ferocity, and tactical astuteness left the Persians completely in panic. They all turned and ran, including the King Darius once again. Because they can't, they're like, shit, our plans have failed, and now we've got this wall of phalanx coming towards us, and we are not prepared, and we're in big trouble because the cavalry, including Alexander, once again is at the heart of this battle, diving into it head on in front of his units. It's like, how do you deal with this boy king that can't be killed?
Also, if they have their own leaders, and they know their leaders who do not want to fight, who are very clearly running at the first sight of trouble, and they see the self-assuredness of a king like that fighting right in the heart of the battle, they're going to be thinking, oh my god, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Like, he's this sure. He has no concern for his own safety, or if he dies, or lives.
Yeah.
It's like, they are aware they're stronger than us. We got to go. Yeah. We got to leave quick.
Not only is it disorganized and a mess, but when there's the morale lack of when your king runs away, imagine the morale lack of when you see this Alexander character, who, at this point, he's like a mythical figure. He's won battle after battle. He's a boy in their eyes. And suddenly, he's like this god that's running towards them on a horseback, telling his units to charge. You would be terrified out of your minds as well. You'd think this is some sort of, demigod.
And bear in mind, the Greeks are like the home of gods, right? I don't know.
I don't know if that's well known.
Maybe not. But like, this is, if it is, he's the son of Zeus. Oh my god. It's Poseidon himself.
Funnily enough, though, like you mentioned, there is a problem. So on the left-hand side, Parmenion is being attacked. I think they're Indian camels or infantry or not infantry, cavalry. Indian camels or
camel counts as horses.
Cavalry, and they're fighting tooth and nail. And the Parmenion is basically surrounded, and his entire left flank is actually in its own separate battle and dying very quickly. And this is like the bloodiest deaths that the Greek army has had to deal with up to this point. It's like this is really bad. He hasn't had to deal with this up to this point. And so Parmenion sends a messenger to Alexander in the thick of the fighting, saying, "We need help. Please come and help us. We're going to die here." Desperate plea for help. Alexander receives this message. King Darius III is running away once again, and his old veteran general is right behind, saying, I'm going to die, and my men are going to die if you don't save us. Please, please come help. What does he do?
He goes after Darius.
No. He turns around immediately. No thought of a lie. No second, wait, what do I do? He does not want to lose his army. So he turns back round, he tells his troops, come back, and he cuts into them again.
He needs the numbers,
and
right?
Well, it's not just the numbers, but it's, this is not only a trusted advisor and friend in general, but it's like the troops trust him, and I like to believe that Alexander, for all it wants his troops to live. He wants to be the general that they want him to be. He might be an arrogant demigod type figure, but he also has an army that's travelled with him on this big adventure into the middle of Persia. He wants to keep them alive, and he cares for them, and so he thinks immediately. He doesn't even hesitate. He goes, I will get Darius. I keep winning battles. I will get him another time, but I'm going to save my friend and troops. So he turns around immediately, goes back and saves them. And I think that speaks to his character, at least a little bit.
You've got the if you tail after Darius, you have literally the entire campaign in your hand there, and you choose to forsake it for your loyalty and your friendship.
Exactly.
Madness.
So.
How many times has that ever happened throughout history? Do you think?
I know
Very
it seems
time.
It does. It seems interesting that he makes that choice when people are so glory focused. They will go for the king straight away. I agree with you. It's an interesting choice, and I think that's why I find it so interesting. By the way, the numbers for this battle are staggering. That was where they took the most of their losses on that side where he went in to save them. But it's roughly believed, even with all the bloody fighting, they lost around 1,000 men.
That's it.
Alexander, that's it.
The Persians, worst day is like
exactly
2% of their forces or something.
And the Persians, meanwhile, lost 10,000. Tens of thousands. We don't know. It's possible even that they had 50,000 lost, including those that were captured. Yeah. So that's like a difference of 50 to 1, or at the very least 10 to 1 slain. That's a rout. That is that's almost a massacre. That's unbelievable how
a brutal victory.
Once again, he's won not only decisively, but like with barely any losses compared to the mountain.
And you imagine like every battle and every victory so far has probably been roughly the same, if not even far more generous in their favour.
Exactly. This is par for the course for him, and that's why I think it's so incredible. Anyway, in 330 BC, with this battle won, 25-year-old Alexander leads his men to Babylon, where he is crowned the new ruler of the empire. Darius has fled, but he has no power. He's lost 2 battles in a row. He has no army to defend it. This big Greek army is now approaching Babylon.
3 battles in a row.
Yes, 3 battles. 2 with him included, I guess, yeah. And technically, there's more battles, but they're more skirmishes. These are the 3 big battles. And when he enters Babylon, there's a huge ceremony. He's accepted completely by the Persian officials, and he's now the new ruler of the empire. There are texts from that time that call him the king of the world, Alexander. Quiz question, if you're ready, Zach. How many modern-day countries did Alexander the Great conquer at least part of during his campaign?
Okay, so Greece, Turkey.
Well, do you want to give me a number first? Because you could be a while.
I think I'll be able to go quite concisely through it.
Okay, go on.
Greece, Turkey, maybe parts of Bulgaria, Armenia, maybe Georgia, Azerbaijan, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Egypt, Iraq, Iran, India, maybe parts of like Afghanistan, Pakistan. I'm going to say 14.
It's a good guess, but it's wrong. It's 26.
Really?
26 countries. So I'll name them all.
Name them all.
I'll name them all. So you got 14 is you've guessed quite a few, but you've missed out quite a few ones there.
Well, I missed the Balkan nations as well.
There's not many more Balkan nations. You have missed a few. So Greece, North Macedonia, Albania, Kosovo, Bulgaria, Romania, Turkey, Cyprus, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Iraq, Kuwait, Iran.
Kuwait, he's in the Gulf states.
Iran, but that's as far as he goes.
Yeah.
Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India.
Jeez, that's basically, if you look at a map, that's basically the entire southeast portion of it, southern portion of it. Yeah.
So he's now emperor of the Persians, or king of Persia. They don't seem to call it that.
King of the world.
King of the world. After this, he has to continue east because he has to confirm his claim over these far provinces. And he also has to chase the usurped king, Darius III.
Still needs to kill him.
Well, yeah, because he's trying to amass another army. It's like, come on, we can
Learn
get
your
him
lesson, Darius, man.
we can get him this time.
You tried your best. You gave it a go. More than some others would have done. And you did well. But learn your lesson.
Yeah, sadly he didn't.
No.
And he continues going.
I hope he gets his comeuppance.
Before
now just arrogant.
The next places he goes to are Susa and then Persepolis, where in Persepolis he tortures the city. Up to this point, he'd been very good, respectful of...
Very good.
Well, he'd been respectful of their customs, wanted to be accepted as a liberator or as a new ruler. He didn't want to piss them off. But in Persepolis, he torched it, he pillaged it.
Is there a reason why?
It was as revenge or retribution for the Acropolis being burned in Greece 150 years ago. So that was his way of saying, look, I love this land, this people, but you can't just do that to the Greeks, and this is your revenge.
An example for the rest of them.
This is an example. Even though it was 150 years ago. I mean, it was 130 years before he was born. Anyway, Darius III tries to amass a new army, but while he's in the process of doing it, it's completely fruitless because Alexander's about to catch up to him. And as Darius is trying to get this together, he's captured by his own generals, and then he's getting ready to be sent to Alexander as a prize when Bessus kills him. One of his own generals, Bessus, kills him and claims, I am the new king of kings. I've been usurped.
Bessus.
Bessus the idiot.
More like asbestos.
More like nice.
Asbestos.
More like worsus.
Yeah. I was going to asbestos, but worse is much better than that. So well done.
So
you're the king of names today.
Nice, really nice and classy. So Bessus flees to modern day Afghanistan, and Alexander follows him. He destroys revolt after revolt, because like in Greece,
he's going to step foot in the graveyard of empires.
He is. He's going to the graveyard of empires, and he is following. He's following Bessus because he has to gain control of these. It's an empire. He needs to show his force, so he goes to all these areas around the Persian Empire to show that he is now the new king, and he has to deal with revolt after revolt and battle after battle, and eventually he catches up to Bessus, who is then, as he's about to be captured, is captured by his own men and brought to Alexander. Alexander brings him back to Babylon, or I'm not sure which city it is, but in central Persia, to execute him as a kingslayer, because he was.
Well done.
Which is funny as well, because technically
he would have killed Darius.
Technically, he's not the king anymore because Darius has been usurped.
Yeah.
But he still calls him a kingslayer, which I think is in a way is respectful. He also brings back Darius's his body. Alexander sends it back to the important tomb in Babylon to be buried with the other kings. So he still treats him with respect, and I think that's part of the thing about Alexander is he still wants the Persians to like him, and I think he wants them to understand that he's not like a Viking that's going to come over and just ruin your life and ruin your
Pillage,
customs.
rape, murder you.
He is like, I will accept what your customs, and I don't want to piss you off, basically.
So I don't understand like the motivation then. Like, why do these historical figures feel the need to do this then? If they don't want to push their way of life, or they don't want to at least capitalize on like the financial and economic benefits of taking somewhere over. Is it just like the thrill of the conquer, do you think?
I think when you have
just
a chance...
writing your name in the annals of history.
You wouldn't do this unless you felt you have a chance, because if you don't do it, you're going to get killed. But I think his perception is, if he goes for this and somehow creates a miracle from it, like Alexander's done, then maybe he can become the... Remember, this is hindsight with all the information we have. Bessus doesn't know everything. Maybe he's heard news that there's dysentery in in Alexander's army, or there's the people don't like him in Babylon and revolts are on the way. Like, history in the moment is a lot more topsy-turvy, up and down. You don't know what's going to happen. And if you get your chance to go for history and go for broke, many men will take it.
You think it's just like just a desire to be historically significant is why these people throughout history have done things they have? History
is very limited. There's not many books that tell you about what happened centuries past.
So legend then?
It's the idea of power and the idea of legend that comes with that. If you think that maybe the next generation will talk about the legend of Bessus who killed this boy king and became the new emperor, why wouldn't you take it? There's no hindsight in comparison to it. It's purely just the idea of being unlimited power.
I'm more talking about Alexander's motives himself to like go on this mad campaign.
Power.
I guess when
ambition.
I think that's honestly it, isn't it?
And remember as well,
everything is.
It's the known world. Past India, the Greeks do not know about. And past, Gaul in France, they're not aware of. So to the Greeks, this is the known world, and the thought of conquering the biggest empire in the world and solidifying it, and then going even further makes you, in theory, the greatest human that's ever lived. And that is what a deity would be in their eyes. Alexander certainly had the biggest ego of the time.
Yeah, it's a really strange desire, like human nature, for like more and more and more, and like greed and power, and like how that plays itself out again and again and again in history, like constantly.
Yeah.
Like all the time. I mean, I guess when I play a game on my computer, like Crusader Kings of Hearts of Iron, I'm always like, I do really want to conquer the world. So maybe that's, I guess, like innately what we're all like. Maybe you want the next promotion, or you want to be the CEO of a company, and it's all about like the power and the status. Like, why are we driven to this? But it's
That's
a
human.
totally
yeah,
hypothetical question.
It is.
So
No, it's a really interesting question. I would love to talk about further. We don't really have time. I do think that the hypothetical of why humans are designed to want more power is a really interesting question. But I don't know. I don't know the answer, honestly. But it is in nature. There's no denying it. Like humans want more power, and they want more. You
want to be tribe chief. You want to have the most berries, and then like.
And especially when you're young as well. I mean, Alexander's just stopped being a teenager a few years ago, and suddenly he's the emperor of the world. It's like this is someone you would have that ego, wouldn't you? And you would want more than ever. And it's a certain type of person. He clearly has that within him, that trait to want to conquer as far as he can. Anyway,
it's called greed.
It's called ambition. So,
tomato.
Now that he's done all this, he is now taking a moment to take charge of the kingdoms he's captured. He adopts several of their customs, and he marries a Persian princess called Roxana, who he claims Roxana. He claims to have fallen in love with her at first sight. And it was a good move. Apparently it did strengthen some alliances within some of the parts of the kingdom that wanted to revolt. So it was a smart move in that sense. The problem was that this made him quite unpopular with his own people, the Greeks. You have to remember that not only is he now adopting all these cultures, but these Greek warriors have now been fighting for years. They've been on campaign for several... most of them haven't seen home for several years at this point. They were tired of walking and fighting and walking and fighting. Ptolitas, whatever his name is, who was one of the main characters in his main generals in his army, the son of his main man Parmenion. Parmenion and Ptolemas were extremely popular men. What was uncovered around this time was that Ptolemas was actually secret to a assassination attempt on Alexander. It wasn't that it was his plan, but he kept it secret. He helped cover it up. And when Alexander heard the rumor, he took him and he tortured him until Ptolemas admitted it, and then he executed him. Then he sent assassins to Parmenion in another city in modern-day Iraq that killed him before he could find out news about his son's death. So his main veteran general that he's been working with, and his dad's been working with for so long, he kills him before he even has a chance to find out the news, because he's worried about the revolt that could happen if Parmenion, one of the most respected men in all of this empire, finds out that his son's been killed.
So was Parmenion part of this plot?
No.
So he's just done it anyway?
He's killed him just because he's his dad.
Wow. That's brutal.
That is brutal.
But probably quite efficient leadership.
Well, he's cutting out the danger before anything happens, and the danger's neutralized. Now he doesn't need to worry about it. It's true. It's as brutal as it comes, especially for someone that's so respected and such an important part of his life.
Probably feels like
Parmenion would have been in his life since he was a kid, and now he's killed him because of nothing he's done, but because his son's been in a plot against Alexander. Alexander's killed him, and for the sake of power, he is now doing things that maybe he wouldn't have done 20 years ago.
Paranoia and greed.
And he does become more paranoid. After travelling as far as Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, 26-year-old Alexander has now reached the northern end of the empire he controls. He circles back and heads towards northern-day Pakistan and India, but his troops are as dissident as they've ever been. They just want to go home. During one night in the city of Marakanda, which I think is in Tajikistan, or maybe just a bit below it in Afghanistan, in a drunken argument, he kills his close friend and General Clitus.
Yeah.
We all knew
this. One of the prohibition questions.
This is one of the prohibition questions. He kills his friend from it, and this is the culmination of many things. Clitus was being sent to do some backwards task, I think, control some units in some other city, and he felt like, I'm just going to be ignored, I'm just going to be forgotten, I want to be part of your main unit that's doing this conquest. And Alexander sent him on this, and he basically had a massive go at him. He yelled at him. They were both drunk. He said, you're only successful because of what your dad did. You're nothing. Clitus
said that.
Yeah, Clitus said that
the boy king,
to Alexander,
the god of gods.
the god Alexander. He said,
What the hell,
He said,
Clytus?
I know. He said,
That's
well,
crazy.
because he's one of his close friends, and he feels like he's drunk, and he feels like he can.
He's just
like,
had his uncle assassinated.
Yeah.
For the shits.
He's not actually his uncle.
No,
yes.
yeah.
And so Clytus is now in this space where he's like, I'm just going to say it. The Greek, your troops hate you. They want to go home. Why are you doing this? Why you're becoming unpopular? This paranoia
Totally
is
valid things.
Yeah,
as well,
and he has a massive go at him. And apparently Alexander asks like the guards to give him a weapon because he wants to kill him. And the guards say, no, we're not getting involved in this drunken brawl. So they just let him continue arguing. And so eventually they're held back and restrained and they leave off. Clytus comes back in. Like, I don't know how long later.
Another thing. You bastard.
Yeah, he comes back in and starts having another go at him. And at this point, the legend says that Alexander grabs a spear or something on the floor and chucks it, and it hits Clytus square in the chest.
Jeez.
And kills his friend. And he's obviously incredibly remorseful. Like we said in the Prohibition episode, he feels extremely down that he's just killed one of his good friends. A man that saved his life, as we said in part 1 of this. He saved his life in that first battle. And now he's killed him, and he felt extremely remorseful about it.
Yeah. Imagine the anxiety the next day.
Oh.
You wake up with a throbbing head.
Just killed me best mate.
Clive's telling you everyone hates you. And, like, everyone does hate you the next morning.
Yeah.
Oh, did I do that last night? Did I throw a spear at Clytus? There's his body. It's still fresh. Oh, God.
His ghost's going to hate me. Everyone hates me.
Oh, no, Zeus. I'm
sorry,
sorry,
gods.
I'm sorry, Zeus.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's exactly the anxiety we hope he felt. Anyway, he's just killed his mate. Fuck you, Alexander. What's wrong with you?
Not a particularly nice bloke.
Poor thinking. Well, I think it's just the ego. He's arrogant and he's grown
Getting a
up
bit
now
messed
to
up.
believe that. Yeah, and that's what happens when you get so powerful. You become paranoid, not just from the anxiety, but also just in general. You've become paranoid because you're like, who actually is my friend? Are these my friends, or do they trust me? Should I trust them? It's very isolating, this type of scenario. So anyway, then after
Your
that,
boys don't want to see you sore.
they don't. After that, he sends his exhausted army down to the Pakistani mountains, where he fights King Porus, I believe, at one point, where they're in the Punjab region, and there's all these skirmishes, but it ends with this big bloody battle in the middle area of the Punjab region, where it's like the bloodiest battle that they've had to deal with so far, and the most amount of Greeks are dead from this. They still win, and they still win fairly comfortably, but another shock. And Alexander wants to keep going through India. And the men who hear this and they think about, God, we've heard about all these big kings, these great kings of India that want to have these huge armies that want to fight us. It's been like, I think, 8 years since they've been home, and they're just thinking, I'm done. I'm done with this. This is it. His troops mutiny. And finally, he sends them home. It actually takes 2 years to get home.
Really?
They have to travel through the desert. And not even home, but Babylon. That's the center of Persia. That's where they get to after 2 years. And apparently they mutiny again when he takes more Persian customs and traditions. And he has to have this big talk with them. Guys, please think about the battles we won and what we've done. And they finally reconcile and things are all right. But now, Alexander the Great is 32 years old. And he sits back as all the emissaries from Africa, Middle East, and Europe come to him, these kings congratulating him. Homage to the new ruler of the biggest empire the world has ever seen. He builds bonds with the Greeks, with other Persians through marriage. He tries to strengthen everything, basically. Put in new governors in replace of the corrupt ones that he'd put in place before.
Puppets.
And then he plans his next campaign. He's not done.
No?
He wants to go to the Middle East and take there and maybe go into India from there again, but he wants to take over Saudi Arabia and all those countries. That's his next plan. But suddenly he dies in Babylon. It's really difficult to tell how. There's so many different accounts and so many different interpretations of what happened. What is true, though, is that he was drinking the day before because he was a bit of a drinker.
What a guy.
He was drinking with his men, and so it's debated a bunch of things. He basically got a fever the next day, and there's some debates about how long it took for him to die from that fever, but it could have been days, weeks, or it could have been pretty quickly. The point is, we don't know if it was poison, we don't know if it was a plot in some way, we don't know if it was alcohol poisoning, just normal alcohol poisoning, or a fever, or if it was something, like malaria or typhoid.
Chad Alexander's died from alcohol poisoning? Do me a favour.
Well, we don't know.
I've seen him drink under the table, Joe.
He was a drinker, as we said in our Prohibition episode. But we don't know. We don't know what it was exactly, but it was clear that considering his age, this was obviously a very young way to go.
Yeah.
And it's a sad way to go because, you want this big epic
You say
ending.
that. Life expectancy was probably only about 50 years old then.
But that's 32. And also life
Yeah, so it'd
expectancy
be like
is...
somebody who's 50-something dying now.
No, well,
You think it's young? A bit
That is-
young,
but
you're
that
like,
is
"Oh,
young."
It happens.
Well, yes, it does happen, but it's still a shock for this demigod that's supposed to be the ruler of the world to just die suddenly of something that wasn't a battle. He actually did something I actually didn't mention, was that on the way back he got involved in a skirmish where he did almost die. I think he got hit somewhere and it was close to him, dying itself. Maybe that had some influence on a wound that later
Infection.
manifested an infection. But
Staph.
all these different... I mean, honestly, it's a miracle he didn't die before this. Like, he had been involved front line for all these battles. And, if it wasn't for Clitus, he would have died very early on. There's all these different things that could have completely killed him off.
Was that Clitus the
Which one?
black?
That's the one. Not Clitus the White. Who's some other guy that we do not know about.
No
Who cares about that guy?
History forget Clitus the white.
Clitus the Black is the cool guy that shit said,
Clitus the cool, like.
Hey, you idiot. Hey, all your troops hate you. I hate you. Everyone, you fucking... Imagine having the balls to say that to the...
Clitus the big bald boy.
He had the balls to say that to the most powerful man in the history of the world. Literally, Clitus drunkenly goes, "You fucking clown, you idiot!" And Alexander,
Stupid boy.
sorry, who? You talking to
you?
You talking to me?
Oh, you're Clitus the something. 'Cause
Yeah.
no one knows who you are.
You got to respect Clitus for that.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Clitus
for
the
telling
Brave.
it how it was.
That's what we should start calling him.
Clitus the Brave. That was it, and his empire, just like that, had to change once again. The fact is that Alexander kept the empire together through sheer determination and will. Everyone trusted the name Alexander. He was such a brilliant commander, a brilliant tactician, a brilliant leader, that everything was kept together by him. The second he dies, it's a complete power vacuum, because he had young children from, for example, his wife Roxana, but no one to take over
heir.
completely, no heir in that sense. And so all these generals, all these leaders started trying to carve out their own piece of the kingdom.
That's never happened before.
Yeah.
Someone dying and everyone fighting for power. What a foreign topic.
You're right, but at the same time, it is interesting because this was an extreme example of that. This is literally one of the biggest empires ever known at that point, and it was carved up. It wasn't like it took years and years of civil war. It was carved up very quickly. Within a few years, Roxana and his young son Alexander was killed. Literally, his son Alexander and Roxana were killed in Greece, not in Greece, in Macedonia. And so they're just gone straight away, and these kingdoms are cut up and divided, and suddenly it's as if this empire didn't exist at all. It's like this Persian Empire that's lasted for hundreds of years is taken over by a boy, and 10 years of rule from that boy, or maybe even less actually, 5 or whatever, and suddenly it's just gone all over again. It's just gone as if the Persian Empire never existed in the first place.
The thought of like a peasant during that time. Oh, there they go again. Oh, there, he died. So his daughter is fighting him, and their wife got killed. It's just... The times never change, do they?
Yeah, literally. It is so interesting how, like, for a random person in that age, what the amount of change they'd see in front of them and just be like, fucking hell, he's died? He just became king!
Wait, no. You're telling me they've died, but they were just king last week. No. Oh,
doesn't make
his
sense.
son's now in power, and his wife is dead, and the daughter's now a prisoner of that general. Oh, right.
Hey, unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. So apparently his body, Alexander's body, after dying, was going to be sent back to Greece, and on the way it got taken by someone and sent to Alexandria. And after it arrived in Alexandria, we don't know what happened next. It's one of the biggest debates that
Surely
historians
the
have.
Egyptians embalmed it and mummified it, right?
I'm afraid we do not know. And it's literally one of the biggest debates that historians have, is this whereabouts of this tomb of Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
Where is it? Is it anywhere? Has it been burned
Are there
down?
reported locations or?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, we can't get into them now, but yeah, there's a few theories about where it could be or who has it or if it's still alive. Technically Alexander.
If it's not alive, it's dead, Joe. Shall I explain
I understand.
life and death to you? So when
if it's still around, because it was burned.
Yeah,
The city
yeah.
was burned, so we don't know. Speaking of Alexandria, the city, how many cities did Alexander create in his own name?
That's gonna be loads. 41.
You know, that's a good guess because it's debated. So there's never really a true answer. Some people say 10, some people say 20. The max guess, which is quite popular as a guess or an estimate, is 70.
Ooh,
And,
I'm right in the middle.
You are right
I'd
in the middle.
say I'm right then.
Yeah, I'd say, well, you're probably on
Taking
the...
Pint-Sized history logic,
Well
that
done.
typically the
in
right
the
figure is in the middle. I was right back along.
Funnily enough, he even named one of the cities after his horse. Bucephalus. Bucephalus?
I feel like you pronounce that perfectly.
I'm sure that's wrong, but Bucephalus.
Be careful out there.
So, yeah, his life was a complete conquest. He literally left Greece and he never returned. He left at 21 and he stayed in Persia for 11 years until his death at 32 years old. An unbelievable period of history, just change and culture shifts. And interestingly, it started the Hellenistic period, which is like this famous period of Greek influence around the world. Because obviously Persia is now completely influenced by Greek culture after what Alexander did. But also the stories, the whole area. It's just basically
to this day.
Greeks. Well, no, but the point being that Greece, culture was suddenly a huge part of the world as we know, and was like that for 300 years until the year, and this is what they say, I mean, it's debated, but this is the year that they cut it off, 31 BC, where...
was Caesar would have conquered, maybe.
It's not, I don't know if it's Caesar.
Rome.
But point being, the Romans beat the Greeks, or a Greek area, in an important battle, and at that point, the Roman Empire became the important, Western culture of the time. The Romans at that point are now the kings of the world, as the Persians and the Macedonians were before it. This is now the time of Rome. So 300 years, and finally, it's time. It's literally cut. The Hellenistic period is literally cut off from Alexander to
Rome.
The death of Alexander for 300 years until Rome itself. So yeah, really interesting. I will finish with a quote, Zach.
Yep.
This is written by a true poet. The German antagonist Hans Gruber in the movie Die Hard, a Christmas movie, by the way.
It's one of us familiar.
Isn't
that who plays him in the film? It's Snape,
Alan,
right?
Alan Rickman.
Alan Rickman, yeah.
Alan Rickman who says it, and he says it fantastically. He says, "And when Alexander saw the breadth of his domain, he wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer." Now, in reality, it's a fantastic line. At the end of the day, we have no idea where that line came from. There's accounts in like the 1600s of Canadian and British scholars saying things like that, but we don't know where they got it from. It's like a quote lost in history. But the idea of "he wept, for there is no worlds left to conquer," that is...
And the source of that text being the greatest Christmas movie of all time.
The greatest Christmas movie, Die Hard. That's why it's the GOAT. That's
I need to watch it again, man. What a great film.
It's a fantastic movie. But so that's that's the story of Alexander the Great. What did you think?
I really I know a little bit about Alexander. I think, as we always say when we come here, that the other person knows a good deal about it. Yeah. But I did not know that much at all. That's by far one of the subjects that you're talking about that I genuinely knew the least, and it's really fascinating. Like, I probably do agree with you that he was the best general of all time.
It's debatable.
In terms of like his military skill and aptitude, but like his ability to then govern was terrible. And I think you need to. Yeah. I think you probably need to.
He is a boy.
The Hellenic influence going for 300 years does make a difference too.
But I did say general. I didn't say ruler. I said as a general. He's arguably the greatest general, because it's purely military. On a military sense, considering that there was no history before, limited history before it for him to take note from, I think you can't argue that Alexander the Great really has a stronghold over that title, because who else was able to do what he did without the backlog of history that he could draw from?
I'm a longevity man, though, So, I would say that Ronaldo, CR7, is probably not as good a footballer as R9, Ronaldo Nazario from Brazil, but the longevity of CR7 makes you think he's the better player.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
I don't know.
I don't think that's a really relevant reference to this.
Two strange football references in 2 episodes.
Fair play. But yeah, possibly. I don't think so, mate. But yeah, if you get
I don't think so. I don't know.
Honestly, I'm not sure.
Thank you very much for watching the episode.
Yes.
I'm really glad you enjoyed
Both
it. Thank
episodes.
you, Joe.
Thank you.
We didn't film this in one sitting.
No, not at all. Thank you for listening, mate. I mean, I didn't know much about this, and I love learning about new pieces of history. And now I feel like I'm interested in Greek, culture from BC, and I want to do like the Iliad. I want to do the Trojan War, and it'd be so much fun to do that stuff. So,
go on.
So it's something completely different. We haven't gone this far back in history, so I'm glad to do something that's a bit, out of the blue and not World War II for a change. So
we should do more of that, really.
Yeah. So
all right. Yeah. So thanks again for tuning in. See you next episode, where I think we're talking about Henry V.
Henry V. Wow. Cheers, everyone.